And welcome back to Lycan Studios. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. I do have to apologize, my voice is still pretty scratchy. I was screaming my head off at the Penn State game, but yeah, it was absolutely a blast. I do want to say real quick before we jump into this that I just want to say huge shout out to all my Patreon supporters. You guys have been fantastic. You guys are really helping out, like more than you know, since I haven't really been making any money off of YouTube with all of the problems that have been going on. But hopefully we'll get back into that soon. But yeah, you guys should definitely check out the Patreon if you're not a part of it. We do a lot of early uploads, a lot of exclusive stuff, and it's just continuing to grow from there. So anyways, thank you guys so much for those of you who do support it, and be sure to check it out if you haven't. Oh yeah, we also got to say that this is completely fake, and for those of you who think this is an actual plot leak, we will be doing a breakdown very soon, pretty much destroying it, because I think the further it goes, the worse it kind of gets. But it's still fun to talk about them, but yeah, just had to throw my disclaimer out there. This is not a real plot leak. Alright, so episode 4. The episode opens in Winterfell with smoke rising from several different areas of the castle. The battlements are littered with tens of thousands of corpses. Most of the bodies are burnt beyond recognition. The Night King's army is gathered inside the castle walls now. Dany was able to do significant damage to their numbers. The Night King and nearly a dozen White Walkers are walking through the Godswood where all the leaves are now burnt off the Heart Tree. The white tree is now black, with pools of some dried red substance around the base of the tree. Two of the giants enter the Godswood and push the tree onto its side. The Night King then walks through the yard to head to the crypts of Winterfell. As he is walking through the yard, he picks up a weapon that was lying on the ground. It's one of the spears with the dragonglass tips. He looks at it, almost if he is inspecting its properties. He tosses the spear but then puts his hand over his chest. He remembers the children of the forest shoving dragonglass into his own heart. When he enters the crypts, he heads right towards the lower level that is partially collapsed. He has been here before. He knows exactly where he is going. He looks down a tunnel that is freshly lit with candles. He knows that people have escaped, and he knows where they are going next. In the next scene, we see who was able to escape through the secret passages. We have Davos, Tyrion, Sansa, Bran, Sam, Gilly, and Little Sam, Missandei, and several others as they exit through the tunnel. The escape route that Jon had made led them to the White Knife River. They had a few small boats stashed on the shore to take them downriver to the White Harbor in case of an emergency. That is where the rest of Dany's fleet is remaining, and I just realized I made a typo right there, sorry about that. Davos was chosen to lead the party as he knows the waters better than anyone. The map says to wait at the harbor until they regroup. Davos, Tyrion, and Sam pull the two boats into the water and begin loading everyone into them. No one knows who is still alive as they went straight for the tunnel as soon as the horns were blown. Davos doesn't know when Jon or Dany will meet them at the White Harbor. All he knows is that he was supposed to take everyone else there. As they move Bran into the boat, another typo, they notice he is not fully conscious. I just want to say real quick, I may make some typos in this. I was trying to do this super fast so I can get it up, but yeah, definitely gonna have some typos. His eyes are rolled back into his head and his hands are still gripping the chair. Sam says that he will be fine as this isn't the first time he has seen Bran during his visions. Davos and Sam have to unlock his grip from the chair to get him into the boat. Dany, Jon, Jaime, Beric, the Hound, Brienne, Arya, Gendry, and a few others land at White Harbor. Jon says that anyone who escaped as the horns were blown should be reaching the river soon. He wants to leave the injured here and fly upriver to locate any survivors. Dany voices her concern for Rhaegal. She hasn't seen him since he flew off after being hit by an ice spear. Jaime offers to go with Jon even though he was injured trying to save Arya. Jon gives Jaime a nod and thanks him for saving Arya. Jon says, "I need to get the rest of my family out of the north immediately." He says that Winterfell is gone along with most of his men. "We are going to need more help if we are going to stop the Night King. We cannot allow him to take King's Landing even if your sister is ruling there." Tyrion said there is 1 million people living there now. If the Night King turns them all hope will be lost. Your sister must understand that we need her and the Golden Company. We are out of options. Next, Theon and his men prepare to head to King's Landing now that they have the cover of night. They know that the Iron Fleet will be docked in the bay, and they need to slip in there and free Yara before anyone is alerted. As Theon and his men walk across the beach, they notice a shadowy figure sitting in their boat. Theon is stunned when he sees that it is the spider Varys. There are no other boats in sight, and he is completely dry. They have no idea how he arrived at Dragonstone. When Theon asks why he is there, all he says is, "I'm coming with you." Back in King's Landing, Qyburn meets with Cersei and Euron to tell them about recent reports he has been receiving. Qyburn tells them that Dany's fleet is at White Harbor and that she has abandoned Dragonstone while they fight in the north. Her fleet is the only means for transporting her large force. They know Jon said the army of the dead can't swim. Cersei commands Euron to take some wildfire to White Harbor and burn all of their ships. Euron says he will do this, but not until tomorrow. I need another night in the Red Keep. Bran opens his eyes after awaking from his visions. Sam is sitting next to him and asks if everything is okay. Bran had been out for quite some time. His hands are starting to even callous from his grip on his chair. Bran says that he is fine, but he doesn't quite understand his visions this time. Sam asks him what he has seen. Was it the Night King? Is he getting close again? Bran says no and looks at Gilly. I seen little Sam. He was crying and surrounded by fire. Everyone on the boat looks concerned by the tone of Bran's voice. Gilly wraps her arms tightly around her son as Davos tells her not to worry. They will be at White Harbor soon and they can flee on ship from there. Bran says that they won't be getting on any ships. Jon is coming to get us now. Then he looks back at Gilly and says, does your son like dragons? Gilly doesn't even want to look at Bran, but then a dragon appears. It has a big hole in its right wing. Rhaegal seems to have been following them downriver. Back at White Harbor, Dany, Jon, and Jaime prepare to leave at dawn so they can find the rest of the survivors. Jon tells Beric and the Hound to find some food and to make sure everyone gets rest and food. This may be the last chance to fully rest up. Arya is helping Brienne clean out the wound in her leg as one of the Whites had buried a sword deep into her thigh. She can barely stand, let alone fight. The Hound walks over to Arya and Brienne and says, I hope you're not asking for mercy. She won't give it to you. Most men would die from a wound like that, but I'm sure you will have your foot in someone's ass in no time. The sun is starting to come up as Jon, Dany, and Jaime walk over to Drogon. Jon looks back at Arya and says that if we are not back at sundown, all of you need to head towards Dragonstone. The Night King's army won't be able to reach you there. We need to find Sansa, Bran, and the others as soon as possible and get everyone out of here. Jon and Arya hug, then he climbs on Drogon as they descend upriver. In the next scene, Euron and Cersei are lying in bed together. Cersei is asleep, but Euron begins to wake up. He rolls over and looks at Cersei and begins to run his finger across her lips. He moves his hand further and further down until it's under the blankets. He puts his hand between Cersei's thighs and can feel a wetness on his fingertips. He pulls his hand out from under the blankets and sees that they are covered in blood. He rips the blankets off Cersei and he can see that most of the bed is covered in blood. Cersei wakes up when the cold air hits her naked body. She can see Euron staring at her with a strange look on his face. Cersei sits up and is horrified by all the blood she sees. She begins crying and screaming. The Mountain comes into the room, so Euron puts his hands up, but the Mountain walks right past him. He wraps Cersei up and carries her out of the room. Euron gets dressed and walks out of the room with a twisted smile on his face. As he is walking across the throne room, one of the Lannister guards walks up to him and tells him that there is something he needs to see. They go outside and walk down to the river, or the water. When Euron gets closer to the bay, he stops in his tracks with a shocked look on his face. Almost all of his Iron Fleet is gone, leaving only the Silence. Euron quickly boards the Silence, as there are several men on the deck with their throats slit. When he enters the main cabin, he can see that Yara is gone. There's a dagger stuck in the wall with a note pinned under it. The note only reads, "What is dead may never die." Euron pulls the dagger out of the wall and turns to the Lannister guards. He calmly asks, how does someone sneak into the bay and make off with an entire fleet? Before the man can mutter a word, Euron slits his throat and leaves the Silence and walks back towards the city. Euron meets with a few men of the city watch and heads to the chambers of the Golden Company's commander. The room is completely empty upon arrival, so he tells the captain of the city watch to gather all of his men and to find the Golden Company. The city watch searches every establishment, inn, and brothel that they could be in, but the Golden Company is gone, along with the Ironborn men that weren't killed on the ship. Euron, of course, is furious, so he orders the captain to bring him every man that was on the watch last night. They will all be killed. Back on Dragonstone, Theon has dozens of men getting as much dragonglass out of the caves as possible so they can leave and head north. Theon now has an entire fleet with over 20,000 men. They will need to arm as many as possible with dragonglass. While Theon exits the cave, he walks over to Yara, who is on the beach. Theon looks at her for a moment and his eyes start to fill with tears. She is covered in bruises and Euron has had her tongue removed. Theon says, "I am so sorry for what he did to you. I'm sorry I left you." Yara steps forward and wraps her arms around Theon. She is thankful to be alive. Varys and the commander of the Golden Company are standing on the beach as well. The commander shakes Varys' hand and says, "It's good to see you again, old friend." He says, "Illyrio told us that you would come for us, but we weren't sure if you were still alive." Before they can finish their conversation, they spot several ships approaching the beach. All of the men on the beach begin to scramble for their weapons and posts. It takes a few moments for Varys to recognize the banners on the ship. When he finally sees it, he looks fearful. The banner is the Flaming Heart. Melisandre and Kinvara have arrived. Melisandre and Kinvara walk on the beach and begin to approach Varys. The red rubies they are wearing on their throats are glowing brighter than ever. Melisandre says, "Hello, dear spider." Kinvara places a hand on Varys and says, "Do we still serve the same queen?" Varys nods his head as Kinvara says, "Good, you are coming with us. All of you are coming with us." It's time we play our final part in this war, as darkness has taken Winterfell. The king and queen will be back at White Harbor soon, but that isn't where we are going. Varys, you must ride with us. Tell your men it's time to leave. In the next scene, Dany, Jon, and Jaime spot Rhaegal in the sky above the river. There are a few small boats below him. They have found the other survivors. Rhaegal and Drogon both begin to cry out for each other. Davos tells everyone they are going ashore where Jon and Dany are. Jon embraces his family as they exit the boats. They begin to load everyone onto the dragons to fly back to the White Harbor to the others. Before they lift off, Bran tells Jon that they need to speak when they get back to the harbor, as there isn't much time left. Back at White Harbor, Arya and Gendry begin to tell everyone to prepare to leave. It's starting to get dark outside, and Jon said that if they weren't back by sundown to head towards Dragonstone. The Night King may be headed this way as we speak. We cannot stay here long. Beric stands up and says they are here. Both dragons come from behind them as they land. The group rushes over to see who has made it out of Winterfell alive. They start helping everyone off the dragons, and when Arya sees Jaime, she thanks him for helping her family and reaches out to shake his hand. I wonder if it was the gold one. Jon helps Bran down and says, let's have that talk now. Bran says we should speak in private, but Jon declines, saying just tell me what's going on. Everyone begins to stare at Jon and Bran. Sam already knows what's coming next. Bran says, Jon, you're not who you think you are. There is great power in you that you never knew you had. I'm sure you've always felt it. Why do you think you rose from the dead? Why do you think you were the one who found the direwolves? Why do you think Father never told you about your mother? Jon, you have the blood of ice and fire. Jon, you are the song of ice and fire. The three-eyed raven showed me your birth. It wasn't just so I could see who your parents were, it was because you were the one who will bring the dawn. Every time I look for answers on how to defeat the Night King, I see images that point to you. Ned Stark is not your father. You are the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. You are the one who is destined to defeat the Night King, but we have to act fast. These revelations shock everyone who is listening, all while they stare at Jon. Everyone is silent though. Jon is struggling to process everything that Bran has said to him. Sam steps forward and says it is true. He pulls out a rolled up parchment from his pocket and hands it to Jon. It is the record of Rhaegar's annulment with Elia Martell and the secret marriage in Dorne. Bran says that you have never been a bastard, Jon. You are the legitimate heir to the Iron Throne. You are Aegon Targaryen. The news stuns Dany as her eyes begin to fill with tears. She places her hand onto her stomach. Sansa and Arya are at a loss of words. Bran says, I know all of this may be hard to grasp right now, but we must leave. When all this is over, you will know that this is the truth. Finally, Jon says something. He starts to shake his head and says that none of this makes any sense. Why wouldn't Father tell me? Bran says your mother made him promise. He couldn't allow anyone to find out about your father. Robert Baratheon would have killed you. He loved Lyanna, but she didn't love him. Rhaegar never kidnapped Lyanna. She loved him, and together they had you. Rhaegar said that you would be the Song of Ice and Fire, and that the day has finally come. There is one more thing you must do in order to defeat the Night King. You will kill him, Jon, but not here. It's time to go. The Night King has left Winterfell, and he is coming for us all. Everyone begins to walk towards the ships, but Bran tells everyone to stop. It will take too long to travel by ship. He says we will need to fly. We will need to fly to the Trident. I have seen the battlefield in my visions. The lady in red will be there. Dany says, Melisandre? She then says, I will not be able to carry everyone on Drogon. There's too many people. Rhaegal won't let them on without a rider. Dany and Bran look to Jon. Bran says, you are a Targaryen. Jon, you must believe the power in you. You need to embrace it. Dany says, he is right, Jon. I should have known something was up with the way Drogon acts towards you. You bonded immediately. Viserion even died trying to save you. I named Rhaegal after my brother, your father. It must be you who mounts him. Jon knows that they have no other choice. He walks over to Rhaegal, and he walks right up to his face and pets him, whispering something to the dragon. He slowly walks around him and climbs to the top of him. When Jon sits down, Rhaegal lets out a scream so loud that it startles little Sam. Rhaegal stretches out his wings and flaps them a few times. Sansa and Arya cannot believe what they are seeing, but before anyone can react, Jon yells down, let's go. Half of them climb on Drogon while the other half climb onto Rhaegal. They head towards the Trident. Euron enters Qyburn's lab room. He had been examining Cersei after she had her miscarriage. Cersei had lost a significant amount of blood. Qyburn has her sedated with one of his potions. Euron tells Cersei about his fleet and how they have gone along with the Golden Company. Euron says he has no reason to stay in the city. Cersei doesn't have enough men to hold it. He is taking the silence and leaving. Cersei says, wait. She sits up and says, I thought you were a king. You promised you would never abandon me, and now you want to leave because we have lost a few men and a few ships? We haven't lost yet. I still have something they don't. Dany said that the army of the dead is 100,000 strong. Have patience. The dead will crush our enemies for us. Dany has already lost one dragon. She will lose the rest. King's Landing is well protected. No one will enter through our gates. And if they do, there will not be a city left to rule. The plans have already been set in motion before you arrived. Now, you said you wanted to rule together and to crush our enemies together. You say you need a queen at your side, but you are only the king of the Iron Islands. How about I make you a true king, and together we can watch our enemies burn alive? And that ends episode 4. So there was definitely quite a bit of things that we're going to be able to pick apart, but it is still pretty interesting. Whoever came up with this definitely put some thought into it. And yeah, they did a pretty good job. I mean, of course, there's going to be plot holes and stuff, but honestly, I'm not convinced that the real Season 8 is not going to leave some holes as well. So nonetheless, hopefully you guys stick around for episode 5. Be sure to check out the Twitter, the Patreon, the Snapchat, all that stuff. And yeah, this has been Lycan Studios. We'll see you in that next one, hopefully tomorrow. Peace.